We all know that this is a polarized time in American politics, and it's not hard to see why. The United States is divided between people who think government needs to be big enough to provide all of our wants, and those who think it needs to be small enough to protect all of our freedoms. It's hard to find a compromise between those two positions. But there's another gap in our politics, and this one may be even more serious. It's the chasm between those who are intellectually honest and those who are happy to sacrifice the truth if it will accomplish their political goals. And usually that truth involves how your tax dollars are being spent. Take, for instance, the case of General Motors. Even in the midst of the financial crisis, it made no sense for the federal government to bail out this smoldering wreck of a business. After all, GM couldn't blame a short-term market meltdown for decades of bad decisions. Unfortunately, a Republican White House decided to rescue the company at taxpayer expense. For those of us who believe in limited government, that was bad enough, but at least they didn't lie to us about what was going on. That's more than we can say for the current administration. Last week, the Obama White House proudly boasted about how effective the government's intervention in the auto industry was. The cause for their celebration was GM's announcement that it was repaying over $8 billion in government loans more than 5 years early. Sounds great, right? There's one little problem, though. The money that GM was paying back didn't come from new corporate profits. It came from yet another pot of government funds. GM essentially took money out of the back door of the Treasury and paid it at the front. And while this administration is popping the champagne corks, taxpayers are still expected to lose $30 billion on the auto industry bailout. And while we're talking about fiscal fictions, let's not forget Obamacare. A study released last week by the government's own Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services found that the law which the president said would lower costs would actually increase them by more than $300 billion. The study also found that fines for those who don't have health care will total $120 billion, that nursing homes and hospitals will be driven into the red, and that 23 million people will still be without health insurance. In short, the program is both more expensive and less effective than the president promised. Americans are smart and serious people, and we deserve respect from our government when it comes to how our money is spent. What we're getting instead are accounting practices that would land private citizens in jail. It's time for Washington to stop the shell game. Either be honest with us or find a new line of work. Don't make us choose for you. That's this week's Freedom Minute.